What if I told you that there exists a very ancient book that the Church decided to eliminate because it revealed the true origin of evil in the world? A book that was quoted by the apostles themselves in the New Testament, but which later councils removed from the official biblical canon. A book that explains who the fallen angels really were, why they betrayed God, and how their rebellion gave rise to monstrous beings that dominated the earth before the flood. I'm talking about the Book of Enoch. And before you think this is fantasy or religious fiction, let me tell you something that will completely change your perspective. The Apostle Jude quoted it verbatim in his canonical epistle. Peter mentioned it indirectly. The early church fathers considered it sacred, and it was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls in the caves of Qumran in 1947, confirming its antiquity and authenticity. So why was it eliminated? What did this book contain that made it so dangerous to the ecclesiastical structure? According to preserved historical records, the Book of Enoch narrates in detail what Genesis barely mentions in 4 verses: the story of the sons of the gods who descended to earth, mixed with the daughters of men, and begot a race of giants called Nephilim. But the book goes much further. It describes with names, hierarchies, and specific details who these rebel angels were, what their secret pact was, what forbidden knowledge they shared with humanity, and why God decided to destroy the antediluvian civilization with the flood. Enoch, according to Genesis, was the only man in the entire Bible who did not die. Enoch walked with God, says the sacred text, and he was no more because God took him away. Enoch lived 364 years on earth. And according to the book that bears his name, during that time he was taken to heaven multiple times, where he had access to cosmic secrets, prophetic visions, and revelations about humanity's final destiny. He saw the throne of God. He spoke with archangels. He toured the prisons where the fallen angels await final judgment, and he witnessed the divisions of Sheol, the place of the dead. All this was recorded in a text that circulated widely during the Second Temple period, was venerated by the Essenes of Qumran, quoted by the apostles, and finally banned by ecclesiastical councils between the 3rd and 4th centuries. Why? Because according to some researchers, the Book of Enoch called into question the ecclesiastical power structure by suggesting that spiritual knowledge could be obtained through direct revelation without institutional intermediaries. Because it gave too much detail about the spiritual world, the nature of angels, and the cosmic war between good and evil. Because its cosmology, although compatible with the Bible, was too detailed and specific to control doctrinally. Today, more than 1700 years after its official censorship, the Book of Enoch still exists. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church maintains it in its canon to this day. The Qumran manuscripts confirmed its pre-Christian antiquity. And millions of people around the world are rediscovering a text that was deliberately kept from humanity's hands. What you are about to discover in this video is not conspiracy theory. It is the historical, archaeological, and theological evidence about one of the most controversial and censored books in religious history. And at the end of this journey, you yourself will decide why this text was considered so dangerous that it had to disappear from mass knowledge. Because what is written in the Book of Enoch changes everything you believed about good, evil, angels, demons, and the true origin of wickedness in the world. Enoch was the 7th patriarch from Adam, according to the book of Genesis chapter 5, verses 21 to 24. He lived 365 years, and the biblical text says something extraordinary that is not repeated for any other character. Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, because God took him. He didn't die, he was taken. The book of Hebrews in chapter 11 verse 5 confirms, "By faith Enoch was translated, that he should not see death and was not found, because God had translated him." This is the only direct mention of Enoch in the canonical Old Testament, barely 5 verses in the entire Bible. And yet the Apostle Jude, in his canonical epistle verses 14 and 15, does something extraordinary. He quotes verbatim a prophecy of Enoch that does not appear in any official Old Testament book. And Enoch also, the 7th from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, "Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon all." This quote comes directly from the Book of Enoch, chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. This means that Jude not only knew the Book of Enoch, but considered it authoritative enough to quote it in an epistle that today forms part of the canonical New Testament. If an apostle openly quoted it, why was it eliminated from the canon centuries later? The censorship of the Book of Enoch has several historical layers. Officially, the Council of Laodicea in 364 AD was one of the first to establish a list of canonical books that excluded apocryphal texts. Subsequently, the Council of Trent between 1545 and 1563 reaffirmed the Roman Catholic canon and definitively left out the Book of Enoch. The official reasons were theological. It was argued that the book contained cosmological and angelological elements that were too detailed and could lead to heretical interpretations. But according to researchers like Dr. James Charlesworth of Princeton University, there are deeper reasons. The Book of Enoch promoted a spirituality of direct revelation. Enoch did not need priests' temples or institutions to access God. This in the context of a church that was consolidating its hierarchical structure and its role as mediator between God and the faithful represented a dangerous message. In addition, the book described the spiritual world in too much detail. Names of angels, celestial hierarchies, divisions of hell, mechanisms of final judgment. This level of specificity made doctrinal control difficult. Ironically, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church never removed the Book of Enoch from its canon. For them, it remains sacred scripture to this day. And in 1947, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the caves of Qumran, 11 fragmentary copies of the Book of Enoch were found in Aramaic, confirming that it existed before the birth of Jesus and was considered sacred by the Essene community. If the apostles knew it, the early Christians venerated it, and the Essenes jealously preserved it, what authority did the institutional church have to eliminate it centuries later? And more importantly, what truths does that book contain that were considered so dangerous? The Book of Enoch begins with a revelation that the canonical scriptures barely mention, the story of the Watchers. According to the preserved text, the Watchers were a special class of angels to whom God entrusted a specific mission to watch over and guide humanity in its early times on earth. There were 200 angels, according to the book, assigned to this divine purpose. But something went terribly wrong. The Book of Enoch, in its chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, narrates the following. When the children of men had multiplied, in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw them, and lusted after them. These angels didn't just observe humanity. They fell in love with human women, and they decided to descend from heaven to take them as wives. But they knew that what they were about to do was a cosmic transgression. So according to chapter 6, verses 4 and 5, they made a pact. Then their leader Semjaza said to them, I fear you will not want to carry out this action, and I will be the only one responsible for a great sin. But they all answered him, Let us all swear an oath and bind ourselves under a curse not to change this plan. 200 angels swore on Mount Hermon. The name Hermon comes precisely from the Hebrew word herem, which means curse or thing consecrated under oath. It's a real mountain that exists to this day on the border between Israel, Lebanon, and Syria, and according to the traditions preserved in the Book of Enoch, it was there that the Watchers sealed their pact of rebellion. The book lists the leaders of this rebellion with specific names: Semjaza, the principal leader; Azazel, who would teach humans dangerous secrets; Armaros, Barakel, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Asael, and many others. Each of them commanded a group of 10 angels under their command. And together they descended to Mount Hermon, took human wives, and had children with them. Now this is not an invention of the Book of Enoch. The canonical Bible mentions this event in Genesis 6, verses 1 to 4. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of the gods saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of the gods came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. These sons of the gods are, according to the oldest interpretation preserved in Jewish and early Christian texts, the same fallen angels of the Book of Enoch. And the giants mentioned are the Nephilim, the hybrid offspring between angels and human women. But Genesis only dedicates 4 verses to this event, The Book of Enoch dedicates entire chapters. Why? Because according to the censored text, this was not a simple episode of moral transgression. It was the cosmic origin of evil on earth. It was the moment when celestial beings with divine knowledge intentionally corrupted human creation, and it was the reason why God decided to destroy the world with the flood. Have you ever heard about the Watchers and their pact on Mount Hermon? Tell me in the comments. I'm fascinated to know how much true seekers of truth like you know. Your experience can illuminate others who are just awakening to these revelations. The Watchers didn't just mix with humanity. They shared secrets that, according to the Book of Enoch, should never have been revealed to mortal beings. Teachings that corrupted the antediluvian civilization and unleashed violence, dark magic, and spiritual perversion. But of all the fallen angels, there was one whose transgression was considered the most serious, Azazel. And what this angel taught humanity was considered so dangerous that his punishment was different from the others. He was chained in a place of absolute darkness, covered with sharp stones, awaiting final judgment. What did Azazel do that was so terrible? And why does his name appear in Jewish rituals to this day? You'll discover that next, because what the Watchers did was not just a moral transgression, it was an act of spiritual warfare that changed the destiny of humanity forever. The direct consequence of the union between the Watchers and human women was the birth of a race that the Hebrew scriptures call Nephilim. The term Nephilim comes from the Hebrew root naphal, which means to fall. They are literally the fallen ones, or those who made others fall. And according to the Book of Enoch chapter 7 verses 1 to 6, these beings were not simply taller humans. They were monstrous giants whose hybrid nature made them an abomination to both heaven and earth. The text describes that the human women impregnated by the Watchers gave birth to these beings, and their size was 3,000 cubits. To put it in perspective, an ancient cubit measures approximately 45 centimeters. 3,000 cubits would be about 350 meters in height. Academic researchers consider this figure to be symbolic or the result of copyist errors over the centuries. Other versions of the text mention 300 cubits, which would be equivalent to about 135 meters. Even if we reduce this figure to more reasonable proportions, according to later accounts, we're talking about beings between 3 and 10 meters tall, true giants. And the Book of Enoch doesn't just describe their size, it describes their corrupt nature. According to chapter 7, verses 3 to 5, "And they devoured all the work of men, until men could no longer feed them. Then the giants turned against men to devour them, and they began to sin against the birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour each other's flesh and drank the blood. The Nephilim consumed all of humanity's resources. When there was no longer enough food, they began to eat humans themselves. And according to the text, they practiced cannibalism even among themselves." This description coincides with traditions preserved in ancient cultures from around the world. The Greek Titans who devoured humans, the Nordic giants who opposed the gods, the Asura of Hindu mythology who caused chaos on earth. All of them share the same pattern: hybrid beings of colossal size with violent and destructive behavior. Now, is there biblical evidence of this? Yes. In Numbers 13:33, the spies sent by Moses to Canaan return, saying, "And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight." Anak is mentioned as a descendant of the Nephilim who survived the flood. In Deuteronomy 3:11, the bed of King Og of Bashan is described. "For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbath of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it. 9 cubits equals about 4 meters long. This suggests that Og was at least 3 to 3, 5 meters tall. And the biblical text identifies him as of the remnant of giants, confirming that there were survivors of the Nephilim race after the flood. How is it possible that they survived if the purpose of the flood was to destroy them? The Book of Enoch offers a disturbing explanation. According to chapter 15, verses 8 to 12, when the Nephilim giants died physically, their spirits could not ascend to heaven or descend to Sheol like human souls. Their hybrid nature condemned them to wander the earth as evil spirits, and these spirits, the text says, are the demons that torment humanity to this day. They are not fallen angels. They are the disembodied spirits of the dead Nephilim, and their purpose, according to the Book of Enoch, is to corrupt, possess, and destroy humanity because they blame humans for their cursed condition. This teaching was preserved in later Jewish texts, such as the Book of Jubilees and the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, and according to some researchers of early Christianity, this is why Jesus constantly cast out demons. He wasn't fighting fallen angels. He was casting out the spirits of the Nephilim, who continued to torment humanity thousands of years after the flood. But the Nephilim were not the only legacy of the Watchers. There was another even more serious crime. The fallen angels shared secret knowledge that should never have been revealed to humanity, and that was the sin that definitively sealed their eternal condemnation. If the Nephilim were the physical result of the Watchers' transgression, the forbidden knowledge that these angels shared with humanity was their most destructive spiritual legacy. According to the Book of Enoch, chapter 8, verses 1 to 4, each of the Watcher leaders taught humans specific secrets that corrupted the antediluvian civilization. The first name mentioned is Azazel, and what he taught was considered so dangerous that his punishment was the most severe of all. The text says, Azazel taught them to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates. He showed them the metals of the earth and the art of working them. Azazel introduced organized warfare. Before his intervention, according to preserved traditions, human conflicts were primitive, but with angelic metallurgical knowledge, humanity began to forge sophisticated weapons, and with them came massive war, conquest, and bloodshed on an industrial scale. But that wasn't all. The text continues, and the bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of precious stones, and all coloring tinctures. Azazel also taught cosmetology and vanity. Why is this considered sinful? Because according to the preserved theological interpretation, these knowledges promoted superficiality, artificial seduction, and manipulation of appearance to deceive. They diverted humanity from the natural beauty of divine creation toward artificiality and falsehood. But Azazel was not the only one. The text lists other Watchers and their teachings. Semyaza taught enchantments and root-cutting, magic and sorcery. Armaros taught the undoing of enchantments, counter-magic. Barakel taught astrology, the reading of the stars and prediction of the future. Kokabiel taught the signs, interpretation of celestial portents. Tamiel taught astronomy, the movements of stars and planets. Asradel taught the course of the moon, calendars, and lunar cycles. Now, a fundamental theological question arises. Why was this knowledge considered forbidden? After all, many of these knowledges, astronomy, metallurgy, herbal medicine, are legitimate sciences that humanity eventually developed. According to interpreters of the Book of Enoch, the problem was not the knowledge itself, but three key factors. First, the timing. Humanity was not spiritually prepared to receive this knowledge. It was like giving nuclear weapons to children. Advanced knowledge without moral maturity inevitably leads to abuse and destruction. Second, the intention. The Watchers did not share these secrets to help humanity, but to corrupt it. They sought to create dependence, worship, and spiritual slavery. They wanted to be venerated as gods. Third, the source. This knowledge came from beings rebellious to God. It was contaminated by malicious intentions and separated humanity from its direct dependence on the Creator. The result, according to the Book of Enoch, was catastrophic, and there was much ungodliness and fornication, and they went astray, and all their ways became corrupt. The antediluvian civilization plunged into violence, sorcery, idolatry, and massive sexual perversion, and this, according to the text, was what forced God to intervene with the flood. But before that, there was a celestial judgment. The archangels loyal to God, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, raised a cry to the divine throne. According to chapter 9 of the Book of Enoch, the archangels said, "You have seen what Azazel has done, how he has taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets that are performed in the heavens. And Semjaza, to whom you gave authority to command over his companions." The loyal angels asked for justice, and God responded with a decree of judgment that would change the destiny of the Watchers forever. But here's the most disturbing connection. If the Watchers shared secret knowledge with humanity in antediluvian times, is it possible that that knowledge survived the flood? Is it possible that later civilizations preserved fragments of that forbidden angelic science? The Book of Enoch suggests that not everything was lost in the flood, that certain knowledge was preserved, and that the battle between divine knowledge and forbidden knowledge continues to this day. But before exploring that topic, we need to understand what happened to Enoch himself, because his story doesn't end on earth. He was taken to heaven, and what he saw there, what was revealed to him about the structure of the universe, the destiny of the fallen angels, and the future of humanity, that's what comes next. While humanity sank into the corruption caused by the Watchers and the Nephilim dominated the earth, Enoch received a divine summons. According to the Book of Enoch, chapters 14 to 22, he was taken by angels of the Lord through the heavens, where he witnessed wonders and horrors that no other mortal had seen. Chapter 14 begins with a vision that was shown to him. Behold, in the vision clouds and mist appeared, and the stars and lightnings impelled and pressed me. And in the vision, the winds made me fly, lifted me up, and carried me to heaven. Enoch was transported outside the physical earth, and the first thing he saw was a colossal structure in heaven, a dwelling built with hailstone stones, whose walls shone like crystal and whose floor gleamed. This celestial house, according to the text, had impossible proportions. Its doors were so tall as to pierce clouds. Its interior was enveloped in fire and ice simultaneously. And inside it was another house, even larger and more glorious. Inside it, according to chapter 14, verses 18 to 20, "And I saw a high throne. Its appearance was like ice, and the wheels like the shining sun. And from under the great throne came rivers of burning fire, so that it was impossible to look at it." Enoch saw the throne of God, and upon that throne, a figure he did not dare to describe completely, and the great glory sat upon it. And no angel could enter and see the face of the glorious and magnificent, nor any being of flesh could look upon him. This vision is parallel to Ezekiel's descriptions in his canonical prophecy, chapter 1, where he also describes the divine throne with wheels of fire and celestial beings. But the Book of Enoch goes further. It doesn't just describe what Enoch saw, but what was revealed to him. God spoke to him directly. And according to chapter 15, he explained to him the true nature of the Watchers and their transgression. "Why have you abandoned the high, holy, and eternal heaven and lain with women, and begotten giants as sons?" The divine response confirmed that the Watchers had violated the cosmic order. They had been created as eternal spirits, without need of reproduction. But by taking bodies and mixing with human women, they had corrupted both their own nature and human creation. But Enoch's vision didn't end there. He was taken to tour other celestial places. According to chapters 17 to 19, he saw the place of eternal fire where the rebellious spirits will be tormented forever, the prisons of the fallen angels in dark valleys under the earth, awaiting final judgment, the storehouses of the winds that control the climate on earth, the treasures of snow and hail kept for the day of judgment, and most shocking, Sheol, the place of the dead. According to chapter 22, Enoch saw that Sheol was divided into 4 compartments, one for the righteous who awaited resurrection in peace, one for ordinary sinners who suffered in darkness, one for martyrs who cried out for justice, and one for the wicked who would be completely destroyed in final judgment. This cosmology of the afterlife deeply influenced Second Temple Judaism and early Christianity. Jesus' parables about the rich man and Lazarus in Luke 16 reflect this division of Sheol. Pauline theology about resurrection and the intermediate state also has echoes of the Book of Enoch. But the most significant thing about Enoch's vision was not what he saw, but what was revealed to him about the future. Because God didn't just show him the present state of the cosmos, he revealed to him prophecies about the final destiny of all things. And those prophecies, according to the text, are being fulfilled precisely in our days. But before we get to them, we need to understand what happened to the Watchers, because after Enoch saw the throne of God, he received a specific mission, to carry a message of judgment to the fallen angels, and what awaited them was a punishment that surpasses any description of hell in the canonical Bible. After Enoch witnessed the throne of God and the structure of the celestial cosmos, he received an extraordinary and terrible mission. He had to carry a message of judgment to the fallen Watchers. According to the Book of Enoch, chapter 13, the rebel angels, aware of their transgression and terrified by the signs of divine wrath, asked Enoch to intercede for them before God. Then Enoch went and said to Azazel, "You will have no peace. A severe sentence has come out against you. They will bind you, and you will have no rest or intercession." Azazel, the angel who had taught war and vanity, would be chained in the desert. According to chapter 10, verses 4 to 6, God commanded the archangel Raphael, "Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness. Open the desert that is in Dudael, and cast him there. Put upon him rough and sharp stones, and cover him with darkness." Azazel was buried alive in a place of absolute darkness, covered with sharp rocks, awaiting the day of final judgment when he would be cast into eternal fire. This tradition survived in Judaism. In Leviticus 16, 8-10, during the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, a ritual was performed where 2 goats were selected. One was sacrificed to God. The other, called the scapegoat, was sent to the desert for Azazel, symbolically carrying the sins of the people. This Jewish ritual preserves the memory that Azazel was confined in the desert and is considered the bearer of sin. But the judgment didn't stop at Azazel. According to chapter 10, verses 11-14, God commanded the archangel Michael, "Go and bind Semjaza and his companions who have united with women. Bind them for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth until the day of their judgment and consummation." 70 generations. If we calculate a generation as 40 years, biblical standard, we're talking about 800 years. But some interpreters suggest that 70 generations is a symbolic number representing until the end of times. The Watchers were chained in underground prisons, in absolute darkness awaiting final judgment, and according to the text, they're still there. From where are you watching this video? It excites me to know that these truths are reaching thirsty souls around the world. Write your country or city. Let's form a global network of truth seekers. But what happened to the Nephilim, the giant children of the Watchers? According to chapter 10, verses 9 and 10, God commanded the archangel Gabriel, "Proceed against the bastards and reprobate children of fornication, and destroy the children of the Watchers from among humans. Send them against each other so that they perish in battle." The Nephilim self-destructed in fratricidal wars before the flood. But as we already mentioned, when their bodies died, something disturbing happened. Their spirits, due to their hybrid nature, could not follow the normal destiny of human souls, nor return to heaven like angels. They were trapped on earth. And according to chapter 15, verses 8-12, these spirits became the demons that torment humanity. And now the giants who were born of spirits and flesh will be called evil spirits on earth, and on earth will be their dwelling. And evil spirits proceed from their bodies. This is the Book of Enoch's explanation of the origin of demons. They are not fallen angels. They are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, and their only purpose is to corrupt, possess, and destroy humans. This teaching was preserved in later Jewish texts like the Book of Jubilees, which expands, "And the evil spirits began to lead astray, and to corrupt and to destroy the children of men." And according to Jubilees 10:5, Noah prayed to God to bind these spirits, because after the flood they continued to torment his family. God responded by ordering that 9 out of every 10 demons be bound, but 1/10 was left free to continue testing and tempting humanity until the end of times. This belief explains why in the canonical Gospels, Jesus constantly cast out demons. They were not fallen angels from heaven. They were the spirits of the Nephilim, who continued to wander the earth thousands of years after the flood. And according to the New Testament, in 2 Peter 2:4, the fallen angels remain prisoners. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment. And Jude 1:6 confirms, "And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness, unto the judgment of the great day." The canonical Bible confirms the judgment of the Watchers. It simply doesn't give the details that the Book of Enoch provides. But now the most uncomfortable question arises. If all this happened, if it was taught by the early Christians, if it was quoted by the apostles, why did the church eliminate this book? We have seen the content of the Book of Enoch. We have analyzed its teachings about the fallen angels, the Nephilim, the origin of demons, and divine judgment. Now we need to answer the most important question. If this book was venerated by the Jews of the Second Temple, quoted by the apostles, and considered sacred by the early Christians. Why was it eliminated from the official biblical canon? The answer has several historical, theological, and political layers. First layer, the Council of Laodicea, 364 AD. According to preserved historical records, this was one of the first councils that attempted to establish an official list of canonical books for the Church. In its Canon 60, it prohibited the public reading of non-canonical books in churches. The Book of Enoch, along with other apocryphal texts, was excluded. The official reason was that its authorship could not be verified with certainty. Although the text claims to be written by Enoch, the Church Fathers of the 4th century argued that there was no way to prove that he really wrote it. However, this argument has problems. Many books of the Old Testament also don't have verifiable authorship. The Pentateuch is attributed to Moses, but scholars recognize it had multiple editors. The Psalms are attributed to David, but many were written centuries later. So why was the Book of Enoch rejected based on a criterion that wasn't consistently applied to other texts? Second layer, doctrinal control. According to researchers like Dr. James Charlesworth of Princeton University, who has dedicated decades to the study of pseudepigraphical texts, the Book of Enoch presented doctrinal control problems for the institutional church. The book promoted direct revelation. Enoch didn't need priests, temples, or ecclesiastical institutions to access God. He was personally taken to heaven and received knowledge without intermediaries. In the context of the 4th century, when the church was consolidating its hierarchical structure and its role as mediator between God and the faithful, this message was dangerous. If any person could receive direct revelation from God, like Enoch, what was the institution necessary for? Moreover, the Book of Enoch contained a level of detail about the spiritual world that made interpretive control difficult. It named 200 fallen angels with their specific functions. It described the divisions of Sheol with geographical precision. It explained the mechanisms of divine judgment. It revealed knowledge about astronomy, calendar, and celestial cosmology. This level of specificity made it impossible for the Church to maintain certain mysteries deliberately vague, which was useful for maintaining interpretive authority. Third layer, the Council of Trent, 1545-1563. 1,000 years after Laodicea, during the Protestant Reformation, the Roman Catholic Church convened the Council of Trent. One of its objectives was to definitively define the biblical canon in response to Protestant criticisms. In the 4th session of the Council, the Catholic canon was confirmed, which definitively excluded the Book of Enoch. The arguments were that it was not in the Palestinian Hebrew canon, although it was in the Ethiopian one, that its angelological theology was too elaborate, that it could lend itself to heretical interpretations about the nature of angels. But here's the historical irony. While the Western Church rejected it, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church maintained it as sacred scripture. For Ethiopian Christians, the Book of Enoch has always been part of the Bible. They read it in their liturgies, they teach it in their theological schools, and they consider it as inspired as Genesis or the Gospels. So the question arises, who has the authority to decide what is the Word of God? An ecclesiastical council in 4th century Europe, or an African Christian tradition that has preserved it uninterruptedly for 2,000 years? Fourth layer, the Qumran discovery. In 1947, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the caves of Qumran, 11 fragmentary copies of the Book of Enoch were found in Aramaic. These copies date from between the 3rd century BC and the 1st century AD. This confirmed two crucial things. The Book of Enoch existed before Christianity and was considered sacred by the Qumran community. The apostles and Jesus would have known this text during their earthly life. Dr. Michael Stone from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem noted that the Book of Enoch was one of the most copied texts in Qumran after the books of the Pentateuch and the Psalms. This suggests it was considered extremely important by the Jews of the Second Temple. And yet, centuries later, the institutional church decided it was not worthy of being in the canon. Contemporary academic recognition. It's important to mention that many contemporary biblical scholars consider the Book of Enoch as a pseudepigraphical text, that is, a writing attributed to an ancient figure but composed by later authors. However, this doesn't diminish its historical value or its undeniable influence on Second Temple Judaism and early Christianity. In fact, its study is fundamental to understanding the religious context in which Christianity was born. The real reason for rejection, according to analysts like Dr. Margaret Barker, Methodist theologian and specialist in early Christianity, the real reason for the rejection of the Book of Enoch was that it preserved traditions of First Temple Judaism that later Orthodoxy wanted to eliminate. Traditions about the existence of multiple divine beings in the celestial council, the role of angels as messengers of knowledge, the nature of the Messiah as a pre-existent and cosmic figure, and the possibility of celestial ascensions and mystical revelations. These teachings were uncomfortable for a church seeking doctrinal uniformity and institutional control. That's why the Book of Enoch was gradually marginalized, prohibited, and finally forgotten, except in Ethiopia, and except by those who, throughout the centuries, continued to seek the truths that were deliberately hidden. But the Book of Enoch doesn't just talk about the past, it contains prophecies about the future, and what makes these prophecies so disturbing is that many of them seem to be being fulfilled precisely in our generation. The Book of Enoch is not just an account of the antediluvian past, it is also a prophetic book that contains visions about the future of humanity and the final destiny of the cosmos. And the most disturbing thing is that some of these prophecies seem to be being fulfilled in our generation. The most famous prophecy of the Book of Enoch is the one that the Apostle Jude quoted in his canonical epistle. "Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have ungodly committed." This is a prophecy about the second coming and the final judgment. But the Book of Enoch contains much more specific prophecies about the times prior to that judgment. The Apocalypse of Weeks. In the so-called Apocalypse of Weeks, chapters 91 to 93, Enoch divides the history of humanity into 10 prophetic weeks. Each week represents a historical era. According to this division, first week from Adam to Enoch, second week from Enoch to Noah and the flood, third week from Noah to Abraham, fourth week from Abraham to Moses and the giving of the law, fifth week from Moses to Solomon's temple, sixth week from Solomon to the destruction of the temple and the Babylonian exile, seventh week from the exile to the time of Enoch when it was written. Now comes the prophetic part, eighth week. The house of the kingdom will be raised and sinners will be delivered into the hands of the righteous. Many interpreters identify this with the rise of early Christianity and the spread of the gospel. Ninth week. The righteous judgment will be revealed to all the world, and all the works of the ungodly will disappear from all the earth, and the world will be written for destruction. This week describes a period of massive revelation of hidden truths. Secrets that were hidden come to light. Injustice is publicly exposed, and precisely in our era, with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi codices, and the massive access to previously restricted information thanks to the internet, we are witnessing an unprecedented revelation of ancient texts and censored teachings. Never before in human history have so many ordinary people had direct access to ancient documents, academic translations, and knowledge that was previously reserved only for religious elites. Is this the revelation of righteous judgment to all the world that Enoch prophesied? 10th week. The great eternal judgment will come. The first heaven will pass away and a new heaven will appear. This is the final consummation also described in Revelation 21. Have you felt that we're living in prophetic times? Do you believe that Enoch's visions are being fulfilled in our generation? Share your experience in the comments, celestial signs, and natural catastrophes. But there is another prophecy in the Book of Enoch that is disturbingly relevant to our times. In chapter 80, verses 2 to 8, Enoch describes celestial signs before judgment. In the days of sinners, the years will be shortened, the rain will be withheld, and heaven will be stopped. And the fruits of the earth will not grow in their time, and the stars of heaven will deviate from their orbits. It describes climate alterations, natural disasters, and astronomical chaos. Many see in this parallels with contemporary climate change, increasingly frequent extreme weather phenomena, and the global ecological instability we are witnessing. Prolonged droughts in regions that were previously fertile, catastrophic floods in historically dry areas, record temperatures year after year, Modern science explains it as a consequence of human activity and global warming, but the Book of Enoch described it more than 200-300 years ago as a sign of the end times, global conflicts, and kings of the East. Moreover, chapter 56 describes a vision about the last days. Great kings from the nations and from the East will come, and they will rise up against the chosen ones of the Lord, and the earth will be filled with blood. This prophecy about global conflicts between nations also resonates with current geopolitical tensions. Never before in human history have we had the nuclear and technological arsenal to literally destroy all life on the planet. The tensions between superpowers, the regional conflicts that threaten to escalate to a global level, the arms race that continues despite peace treaties. All of this echoes the warnings of the Book of Enoch about the last days, the spiritual awakening of the chosen ones. But the most significant thing is what the Book of Enoch says about the spiritual awakening before the end. In chapter 1, verse 2, it says, "A word concerning the chosen ones, for the righteous and chosen who will be present in the day of tribulation." And in chapter 108, it promises, "In those days the chosen and holy will descend from the high heaven, and their seed will unite with the children of men." The text suggests that in the last times, a generation of chosen ones will emerge that will rediscover the hidden truths and awaken spiritually, despite massive apostasy. And this is exactly what we're witnessing. Millions of people around the world are questioning official religious narratives. They're investigating ancient texts for themselves. They're discovering that crucial information was hidden from them. And they're experiencing a spiritual awakening that doesn't depend on institutions, but on personal revelation and sincere seeking. They're not abandoning faith. They're deepening it. They're removing layers of institutional manipulation to reach the authentic spiritual essence. Is this the fulfillment of Enoch's prophecy? I can't assure it with absolute certainty. But what I can say is that the Book of Enoch, written more than 200-300 years ago, describes with disturbing precision what we're living in this generation: the massive revelation of ancient secrets, the unprecedented climate and natural crises, the global tensions that threaten total war, and the spiritual awakening of millions who seek truth beyond institutions. All of this is happening now, before our eyes, and if the prophecies of the Book of Enoch about these times are being fulfilled, what does that mean for the final prophecy about judgment and the transformation of the world? Each person must answer that question in their own heart, but before reaching the final call, there is one more connection we need to explore, a connection that completely changes the way we understand Christ's teachings, the direct relationship between the Book of Enoch and Jesus of Nazareth. A fascinating revelation about the Book of Enoch is that its influence is found in traditions of multiple ancient civilizations. Enoch and Idris in Islam. In the Quran, Surah 19, verses 56-57, a prophet named Idris is mentioned, and mention in the book Idris. Indeed, he was a man of truth, a prophet, and we raised him to a high station. Islamic scholars identify Idris with Enoch. According to Islamic traditions, Idris was the first human to write with a pen, taught astronomy and mathematics, and was raised alive to heaven without dying. These characteristics coincide perfectly with Enoch. Parallels with Hermes and Thoth. In the Western Hermetic tradition, there exists a figure called Hermes Trismegistus, considered founder of alchemy and astrology. The Hermetic texts state that he was an antediluvian sage who preserved knowledge by inscribing it on stone pillars before the flood. Many researchers have noticed parallels between Hermes and Enoch. Both were antediluvian sages, received celestial revelations about astronomy and cosmology, were raised without dying, and wrote books of wisdom preserved through the flood. In the Egyptian tradition, Thoth was the god of wisdom and writing, the scribe of the gods and guardian of secret knowledge. The ancient Greeks identified Thoth with Hermes, and some Gnostic Christians identified both with Enoch. Pre-diluvian knowledge preserved. There is a recurring pattern in world mythologies. Advanced civilizations existed before a great cataclysm, and sages preserved their knowledge in stone or hidden texts. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus mentions that before the flood, the descendants of Seth inscribed their astronomical knowledge on 2 stone pillars so that it would survive. Is it possible that the Book of Enoch preserves historical memory of an advanced antediluvian civilization? We cannot confirm it, But it is undeniable that the legacy of Enoch appears in multiple world traditions, all pointing to ancient, powerful, and deliberately hidden knowledge. But there is a more direct and surprising connection: the relationship between the Book of Enoch and Jesus of Nazareth. One of the most important questions that arises after studying the Book of Enoch is this: did Jesus know this text? And if he knew it, did it influence his teachings? The answer, according to the evidence preserved in the canonical Gospels, is a resounding yes. The title Son of Man Jesus constantly referred to himself as the Son of Man. This title appears more than 80 times in the Gospels. It is the title Jesus most used to refer to himself. More than Son of God, more than Messiah, more than Christ. But where does this very specific title come from? In the Book of Enoch, specifically in the section known as the Parables of Enoch, chapters 37 to 71, a messianic figure appears repeatedly called the Son of Man. Chapter 46, verses 1 to 4 describes, "And there I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white as wool. And with him was another, whose countenance had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness like one of the holy angels. And I asked the angel who went with me, 'Who is this?' And he answered me, 'This is the Son of Man, to whom belongs righteousness, and with whom dwells righteousness.'" The text continues describing that this Son of Man pre-existed before the creation of the world, will judge all humanity on the final day, will overthrow kings and the powerful, will establish the eternal kingdom of righteousness. All these characteristics are identical to what Jesus taught about himself in the Gospels. When Jesus uses this title, he's not inventing a new concept. He's identifying directly with the messianic figure described in the Book of Enoch, and his Jewish audience of the 1st century who knew the Book of Enoch would have immediately understood the implication of this self-identification. Shared parables and teachings. Jesus constantly used parables to teach, and several of his parables have direct parallels in the Book of Enoch. In Matthew 25, Jesus describes the final judgment where the Son of Man will separate the sheep from the goats, sitting on his throne of glory. The Book of Enoch, chapter 62, verse 5 says, "And when they see that Son of Man sitting on the throne of his glory, and the righteous and chosen stand before him, then pain will seize them." The similarity is undeniable. In Matthew 19:28, Jesus promises his disciples, "Verily I say unto you that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also which have followed me shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." The Book of Enoch, chapter 108, verse 12 says, "And the righteous will be in the light of the sun, and the chosen in the light of eternal life. And their garments will be garments of glory." Jesus knew the Book of Enoch. There is no reasonable doubt about this. The Apostles and the Book of Enoch. As we already mentioned, the Apostle Jude directly quoted the Book of Enoch in his epistle, but Peter also made indirect references. In 2 Peter 2:4 he writes, "For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment." This is a direct reference to the judgment of the watchers described in Enoch. And in 1 Peter 3:19-20, he makes a mysterious reference, "By which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long-suffering of God waited in the days of Noah." Who are these spirits in prison who were disobedient in the days of Noah? According to the context of the Book of Enoch, they are clearly the watchers. And Peter is saying that Jesus, after his death and before his resurrection, descended to the prisons where the fallen angels are chained and preached to them. This only makes full sense if we understand the background of the Book of Enoch. Jesus and demons, a new perspective. When we read the Gospels with the background of the Book of Enoch, Jesus' activity of casting out demons takes on a deeper meaning. The Gospels record that Jesus constantly cast out demons. In Mark, almost half of Jesus' ministry involves confrontations with evil spirits. Why? According to the Book of Enoch, demons are not fallen angels. They are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim who wander the earth tormenting humanity. Jesus, as the Son of Man prophesied in Enoch, came to undo the works of the watchers and free humanity from the oppression of the Nephilim spirits. When Jesus cast out demons, he was fulfilling the prophecy of Enoch about the Son of Man, who would come to cleanse the earth of the corruption caused by the fallen angels, the transfiguration and the ascension of Enoch. In Matthew 17, the transfiguration of Jesus is described, where he appeared with Moses and Elijah. It is significant that he appeared with two figures from the Old Testament, who, according to Jewish traditions, had experiences of celestial ascension. Elijah was taken to heaven in a chariot of fire without dying, so 2 Kings 2:11, and Moses, according to extra-biblical Jewish traditions, had a similar celestial ascension. But there is another figure from the Old Testament who was taken to heaven without dying, Enoch. Some scholars suggest that the absence of Enoch at the Transfiguration is precisely because his book had begun to be marginalized, and the Gospel writers avoided explicitly mentioning Enoch so as not to enter into controversy with the religious authorities of their time. However, his influence is everywhere in Jesus' teachings. Why the later church rejected this connection? If Jesus and the apostles knew and used the Book of Enoch, why did the later institutional church reject it? According to researcher Dr. Margaret Barker from Cambridge University, the answer lies in the theological shift that occurred after the 2nd century. The early church, deeply rooted in Second Temple Judaism, naturally accepted texts like the Book of Enoch. But when Christianity became Hellenized and Romanized, it adopted a more Platonic and abstract philosophy. The detailed angelology, literal celestial journeys, and hybrid giants of the Book of Enoch were too material and mythical for the new philosophical orthodoxy. Moreover, the Book of Enoch's emphasis on direct revelation and mystical ascension threatened the interpretive monopoly of the institutional church. That's why, gradually, the book was marginalized, questioned, and finally banned. But the traces of its influence in the New Testament remain indelible, and anyone who studies the Book of Enoch alongside the Gospels can see the undeniable connections. Jesus not only knew the Book of Enoch, he identified with its central messianic figure, the Son of Man, and his teachings on judgment, the celestial kingdom and victory over evil spiritual forces are deeply rooted in Enochian theology. This means that to fully understand Jesus, we need to understand the context of the Book of Enoch. Without that context, we lose entire layers of meaning in Christ's words, and now we come to the end of this journey. After exploring the Book of Enoch, its history, its censorship, its teachings, its prophecies, and its connections with Jesus, we need to ask the most important question: what does all this mean for you today? We have taken an extraordinary journey. From the angels who betrayed their celestial mission, to the giants who dominated the antediluvian earth, from the forbidden knowledge that corrupted humanity, to Enoch's visions in the heavens, from divine judgment on the watchers, to the prophecies that seem to be fulfilled in our generation. And we have discovered why this book was censored, because it contained truths that threatened institutional control and promoted direct spiritual revelation. But now comes the most important question: what do you do with this information? Because the Book of Enoch was not written just to be studied as a historical text. It was written, according to its own words, for the chosen ones who will be present in the day of tribulation. It was written for a future generation that would rediscover these truths precisely when they needed them most, and that generation might be ours. We live in times when religious institutions are being questioned like never before, where the spiritual search has become personal and individual, where ancient texts that were hidden for centuries are being rediscovered and translated, where millions of people around the world feel they were lied to about fundamental truths, and where there is a deep hunger for authentic spiritual knowledge without institutional filters or control agendas. The Book of Enoch is part of that awakening, not because it is the final answer to all questions, but because it is a piece of the puzzle that was deliberately removed and whose absence has left gaps in our understanding of spirituality, history, and the cosmos. Is the Book of Enoch sacred scripture? For the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, yes. For most Western churches, no. But what is undeniable is that it was venerated by the Jews of the Second Temple, quoted by the apostles, known by Jesus, and preserved with love by communities that never accepted its censorship, and that, at minimum, deserves respect and serious study. Now let me tell you something personal. If you've made it this far in this video, it's not by chance. Something inside you resonates with these truths. Something in your spirit recognizes that there are layers of knowledge that were hidden from you, and that recognition is not rebellion, it's awakening. It's the same spirit that led Enoch to seek answers directly with God, without intermediaries. It's the same spirit that led the Essenes of Qumran to preserve these texts in caves for 2 Zelwazeran years. It's the same spirit that leads millions of people today to question, investigate, and seek truth for themselves. You are part of that search. And the fact that you are here watching this video is a sign that your spiritual awakening has already begun. Now, what do you do with this knowledge? I'm not asking you to reject your traditional faith. I'm asking you to deepen it, to question it with love, to investigate for yourself the things you were taught without questioning, because a faith that cannot withstand questions is a fragile faith. But a faith that is strengthened through sincere searching, that is a living faith. The Book of Enoch is available for you to read. It's translated into multiple languages. It's not a secret text kept under lock and key. It's there, waiting for you to discover it. And when you read it, don't do it with fear or destructive skepticism. Do it with the open heart of a true seeker, because in the end, truth does not fear investigation. Only lies need censorship. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any revelation. Don't miss the next video where we will continue unraveling truths that have remained hidden for centuries. And if you truly feel the call to go deeper, consider joining as a member. The Guardians of Truth are already accessing knowledge that we can never make public. Thank you for watching this video to the end. We will meet in the next video. May the light of truth always accompany you in your search. Amen.